Hey, it's Dr. Dwain Woode, and it's day number 46 in our 100-day walk to consistency, and welcome back to you. We all face self-doubt at some point, but it doesn't have to derail or stop us from being successful. And today, we're going to dive into that concept of self-doubt and how do we go about making sure that it doesn't stop us from being successful. Hey, glad you're here. Welcome. Remember, consistency is our key to success. It is our superpower. We're going to unpack self-doubt. Let's go ahead. I'll see you on the walk. All right, so we're talking about self-doubt today. So we discussed several key concepts when it comes to how we think about ourselves. There are a lot of places where people will find that they struggle. And I'll tell you, for me, one of the biggest issues that I had was this idea of imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome says that I am not good enough, I shouldn't be here, I should not be in this space, that there are other people here that are more qualified. And although no one ever told me in my entire life that I was not good enough, there were things that happened that for one reason or another, imposed that concept on me, and I kept going with it for a long time, and it has caused me, I can't tell you the number of hours of distress, and caused me not to do some things that frankly I would have succeeded at because there was self-doubt. So what is self-doubt? So we want to understand that. So self-doubt refers to the lack of confidence in yourself. A lack of confidence in your own ability. It is part of that inner critic that we've talked about, that part of our brain that's always there to remind us of things that have happened in the past. So it's triggered by past failures, it's triggered by perhaps interactions that we've had with other people, comments, or things that people have said that have become ingrained in us, that we take to heart and continue using and moving with as though it is a part of us. There are times when people have given us criticisms, not for the sake of just criticism, but they've given us criticism to assist us, to help us, to grow, to correct us. And sometimes when criticism is given, we take it and we just incorporate that into ourselves as though that is the law, okay? Unfortunately, when we are being corrected, if it's not done well and if we don't take the correct posture, then that becomes a big part of who we are, or who we think we are. Let me say it that way. So the impact of self-doubt, if it's not checked, if it's left unchecked, it can lead to missed opportunities. It can lead to poor growth and expansion. And we'll be talking here in a little while about mindset and the changes in mindset and the things that it needs and growth mindset and so forth. Not in this episode, but in other episodes. But self-doubt plays a big part in that. And it can prevent us from growing and expanding beyond where we are. Okay, so there's some psychology that goes into self-doubt. There's some cognitive distortion that leads to self-doubt. So self-doubt is frequently caused, rooted, founded in some distortion about ourselves. So there's a story that we're telling ourselves, and remember, the stories that we talk about, the stories that we tell our brain and our mind, those are the stories that the brain keeps. Remember, we are always building a version of ourselves, excuse me, with each thought, with each idea that we are putting in. And the brain is creating the version of the person that we say we are. So when there's this cognitive distortion in our self-image, that translates into how we think about ourselves and ultimately how we behave. There is a popular model out there that's called, I think it's actually just called the model. And it is that things that happen really have no power. They have no effect until we give it meaning. When we give it meaning, then we have a feeling towards it. Because of the feeling, we take a particular action. And remember, repeated actions lead to results. So if someone says something bad about you, for example, that idea, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, we say that a lot, but unfortunately, words do hurt. And so those words, though, really simply are it has no substance, those words. They are simply symbols of what someone has said. We assign a meaning to those words. And once we assign a meaning to those words, then we have feelings about it. So if someone says, hey, you're a terrible, whatever, basketball player, okay? Those words really mean nothing when they come out of that person's mouth. But if in my mind, I've already told myself, well, I'm not good at things. Oh, this was the last thing that I thought I was good at. Oh man, I really do suck at basketball. Now I've assigned a meaning to that, or assigned an idea to that. And when I assign that idea, then I move on to, well, maybe I'm a bad person because I can't play basketball. Notice what's just happened. I've assigned a meaning to what those words mean. The person said them, and I create the meaning. Because now I've attached the fact that, okay, this means that I'm a bad person, what do? I begin feeling sad. I begin going inward. I begin withdrawing. Notice what's going on, right? So the feeling that I have now dictates the behavior that I have. And now that the behavior is dictated, I stop showing up at the gym. I pull back from my family. I don't try anything else when they're making a team on the playground, or making a team on the job, or making a team at church, or at the gym. I don't volunteer. And so what happens? I become worse at basketball. See, notice what happened. We created the eventuality by the meaning that we assigned to those words. Same thing in our health. If our belief is that we're not good at anything, that we never succeed, that things never work out, that this is all I have, this is all I can go to, I can't change, then self-doubt says that there's no reason for me to attempt to be better. So there's no reason for me to get up and walk. There's no reason for me to be on this 100-day walk to consistency. There's no reason for me to begin changing what I eat. There's no reason for me to go to the doctor to make sure I'm getting checkup and make sure my labs are okay, because this is what it is. And so the feeling, or the thing that happens, gives us a feeling. The feeling now dictates our behavior. And because we're not walking, because we're not going to the doctor, because we're not eating better, because we're not taking care of ourselves, then those parts of our lives, our health, suffers because we're not paying attention. So the eventuality comes from the belief. And the belief comes from the assignment of meaning to whatever that is. Okay, so there's this cognitive distortion that we have about ourselves, and that's the life we're creating. So the other thing is the role of mindset. So adopting a growth mindset, right, helps us view challenges as opportunities. So a growth mindset says that it doesn't matter where I am right now, I can improve. A fixed mindset says that all I have is what I see. All I have is what I possess right now. I can't learn anymore. I can't advance anymore. I can't become better. I can't expand. I can't move up in my job. I can't get a better relationship. I can't improve my health. So that's what a fixed mindset says. But a growth mindset says, no, I have the ability to learn. So here we are on our 100-day walk to consistency, and we are learning. So each day we've learned a new concept, a new keystone concept that, and you hear me say at the beginning of the show, that we're putting up a piece to the puzzle with each day. So growth mindset says that each time I do that, I am improving, that I am learning, that I'm firing off those synapses, right? The neuroplasticity is getting better, and because of that, I'm moving to a different space. A growth mindset says that, hey, I may need some assistance, so I'm going to join a group, and that group is my support group, and they're going to help keep me accountable. Growth mindset says that I'm not stuck because of my history. The things that have happened to me in the past have happened to me in the past, and they are part of my history, but they do not define what I can be in the future. One of the concepts that we've done in my space, if you've been following me, is we've talked about New Year, New You, right? And when we talked about New Year, New You, everybody was excited because they saw the new year. You know, we were starting over. The year was coming. The first of the year was coming, and there were all these exciting things that we were doing. And as we talked through the year, there were so many exciting things that we did. Concepts of learning about putting things in place to help our health, putting things in place to help our family, putting things in place to reverse our diabetes. And the new year was important. But you know what's even more important than the new year? It was the new you. Because the year changes, but what do we take with ourselves? We take the us, the you. That's what goes from year to year. That's what is moving with us. And so the growth mindset says that new me that I'm creating, that new me is able to get better, and I can do things that will put me in a place to be better. Okay? So how do we strengthen or overcome? Let me say not overcome, not strengthen. How do we overcome self-doubt? Well, the first thing is going back to a concept that we've touched on. We've not spent a whole lot of time, and we will, delving more into this, but this idea of the inner coach and the inner critic. We're not going to talk about the inner critic today. We're going to focus a little bit more on the inner coach. In order for us to be successful, then our mindset has to change. So we have to have a growth mindset. But we also have to have a way of supporting ourselves and pushing ourselves forward. And we've got to have a way of, when those self-doubt ideas come into our mind, a way of negating those. And this is the job, this is the process of the inner coach. The inner coach is there when you are at home by yourself, when you've had some issue happen and you can't reach other people, when you don't have the ability in that moment to maybe overcome the thought process that's coming from what someone says, something that's happened, and you're not able to then break yourself out of it. The inner coach is simply there to say, hey, look at all this stuff that we've done. Look at the successes that we've had. Look at the benefits that we've had. In my membership group, I have some people who are fasting, and we are doing an amazing job. And there are times when people come on the show and they comment about how they've not succeeded in doing some part of the fast. And so I asked them, well, how many hours have you done? They said, well, I'm trying to go to 48, 72, whatever it is. And they'll say, I've done 23, I've done 24, I've done 36. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. That is a positive. Now, you may not have gotten to 48, but how long did it take you to get to 36? Were you doing 36 before? Was 36 a challenge? And look at how successful you've been. And so the inner coach is that part of us that we want to strengthen, that is basically our cheerleader, okay? And breaking the mindset, that fixed mindset, and breaking self-doubt is so much supported by the inner coach. We often try to keep things in our minds. We try to remember the things that we've done. And I'm going to encourage you in this instance, if no other time, that you begin journaling, that you begin documenting the successes that you've had. Now, you should have been documenting up until today, right? 46 days. If you've not been documenting anything else, each day you're putting a check mark on the calendar, you're putting something in your journal, you're calling a friend and saying, hey, I'm on day 46, I'm on day 45, I'm on day 40, whatever it is. Because this is a positive. You've been able to make it 46 days. You've been able to get up. You've been able to walk. You've been able to do it before you go to bed. You've been able to row. You've been able to stretch. You've been able to do yoga. You've been able to weight lift. Whatever it is that you're doing is in this space, you can do that. And that inner coach is being strengthened with each thing, right? So you want to begin journaling. So regular affirmations also, right? So journaling, strengthening the inner coach. Regular affirmations can reinforce self-confidence, okay? It can counteract the effects of self-doubt. And when you do that, each day, what you're doing is you are building more support for the inner coach. You're saying, hey, inner coach, this is something that I'm working to believe. Remember, when we tell our brain things, the brain is very much interested in being right. And so it will create instances, it will create an idea so that you can be successful. All right? So, strengthen the inner coach, journal, affirmations, and then you want to set achievable goals. So when my son was learning to play basketball, we didn't just give him a basketball and say, okay, now go shoot. Okay, now he did that a lot, but we began teaching him the fundamentals: how to hold the ball, how to stand, how to bend your back, how far apart your feet need to be, how to palm the ball, or in that case, not palm the ball, have the ball in your hand so that you're using your fingertips as opposed to the palm to dribble, right? So we began teaching him the fundamentals. And so here also, when we're talking about self-doubt, often we pick goals that are huge and lofty, which is admirable, but they are not where you need to start. What we need to do is we need to begin taking small steps, small goals, small places where we can be successful. And as we build that success, then we now are able to move on to bigger things because we've built self-confidence. So remember, in our last episode, we talked about the confidence consistency cycle. So each time you do something and you're successful at it, then the inner coach has another thing that it can say, hey, look at that, we were successful there. And each time you're doing that, you're building bigger and bigger chances of success, okay? So the other thing is building resistance or resilience against self-doubt. So as I mentioned in one of our shows, or maybe I didn't, there was someone who said that I don't fail, I either succeed or I learn. And actually, that was in our last episode. I can't remember yesterday. So I either succeed or I learn. And so each time you do something that doesn't quite go the way you thought it was going to go, that doesn't quite end up with what you thought the success was going to be, you didn't fail because you're learning from that thing. So instead of seeing failures as a reflection of your abilities, right? As a reflection of your abilities, then you see that as a place where you could learn a lesson about what didn't work, what won't work, what we should try different, what resources we may need, right? So all of those are things that we get from the chances or the things that happen in terms of our failure, what we call failure. There's a interesting thing I heard or read somewhere where they took a class and they divided the class into two. And the class had to turn in a final project. So these people are working together, okay? So half the class doing one thing, the other class doing another thing, something else. And one half, they could research, they could look, they can discuss, they could do whatever they wanted to do. And then at the end, they created a project, they did the project, and they turned it in. So they did it once, okay? They did all the research, and they spent time looking at all the data, but they could only, but they had to turn in the project, and they put the project together at the end, and they turned it in. The other group could research, and they could try as many times as they want, okay? Put the project together, that didn't work, try something else. Put that together, that didn't work, try something else. Put that together, that didn't work. At the end, when the projects were turned in, guess which group had the better project? That is right, the group that did it over and over and over and over. Because each time they did it, each time they didn't succeed, they improved. They got better. They thought outside the box. They looked at a different perspective. And that is the beauty of learning from our failures. If we don't try things, if you've not failed, let me say it this way. If you've not failed, then you're not trying enough. Come on now, come on, right? Because you're not gonna be successful at everything. You're not going to have everything go exactly the way you want it to go. And so the more things that you do, the more times you attempt something, the more places you put yourself that's uncomfortable, remember we talked about that, the better you are setting yourself up to be resilient. Because resilience says, hey, that didn't work out, but look, I'm still here. I'm still going. I'm still in the process. One of the things that one of our members said to me once is that they thought that if they didn't eat, this is as we talk about fasting, they thought that if they didn't eat, they would die. If they didn't eat, they would die. But to be able to get through a number of hours, whatever the number of hours was that we had done at that time, and to realize, hey, wait a minute, that was a belief that wasn't true, right? And I didn't die. So I can do this again, and trying it again and again and again, okay? So seeing failures, quote unquote, as chances for learning, okay? And then looking for constructive criticism. Yep, that's right. We call it feedback. So whenever you're doing anything, going to someone and saying, hey, this is what's going on with me. This is where I am. This is what I'm thinking. This is how I'm seeing this. Would you help me? Help me process this. Or I'm doing this project. I'm working on my body. And when if people say to me, hey, you've lost weight, I say to them often, I'm working on my beach body. I'm working on my beach body. And so getting feedback from people around us, people who are trusted. Remember, notice I said trusted. So trusted people, getting honest feedback from them. Because there are some people that are going to give you feedback, and they're not the ones you want feedback from, because they don't have your best interest at heart. Their goal is really just to hurt you, to derail you, and to prevent you from moving into that growth mindset. Okay, so you want to get trusted people. So you want to get constructive criticism and use their feedback as a way of looking at what's going on, looking at what you're doing, and saying, okay, I can be better, right? I can do this better. I can be in a better space, okay? So learning from our failures, constructive feedback, and then this whole idea of looking at failures as successes. A great place for journaling is right here. Right? So I'm going to add that into how we fight against self-doubt. In all the things that we do, the episodes that we go through, the conversations that we have, the challenges that we have, the lessons we're learning, you should be documenting your progress. You should be documenting your ideas before. You should be documenting your ideas after. So when these episodes come out, when you're doing your journaling at the end, right, you want to sit down and say, okay, now I've gone through this conversation. I've done the challenge. What did I think before this conversation? What was my idea about self-doubt? Did I have self-doubt? Where has self-doubt played a part in my life? And now that I've gone through this episode, and now that I've implemented the challenge, now that I've done some work, how does that sit with me now? Have I made changes? Are there benefits to what I've done? Okay? So not just learning from failures, not just getting feedback, but journaling is a great way of beginning building resilience against self-doubt. And then another concept that I want us to be very much in tune with is the ability of the community to help combat self-doubt. There was a time, but there are lots of times that I've gone through my life when the only reason that I was able to make it through was because I had community and I had faith. Had community and I had faith. I've probably mentioned or said to you, talked to you about a physician friend of ours. He was actually a dentist. His wife was a physician. When I was in medical school, and I had challenges with exams, all right, because I came from a background in computer science and humanities, and decided I was going to become a doctor. And I went to medical school, and the way medical school works was different from my natural tendency and my ability to reason, all right? Now, to those of you out there who are in the healthcare field, don't say I'm saying that there's no reasoning. But I was used to, for instance, in math and computer science, which is my background, I was able to take a problem and start with the problem and reason my way to a solution, right? A math problem, for example. When I got to med school, all of a sudden, it was, okay, here's this volume of material. All you've got to do is memorize it. Now, there's some understanding that goes with it, but it's really just a lot of memorization. And so a lot of times people don't have difficulty in medical school because the concepts are difficult, but there's just so much of it. It's like trying to drink from a fire hydrant. And so I got there and started having trouble, had trouble with some of my exams and classes. And at one time I left medical school. Yep, I did. I just got up and said, okay, this is it. I'm just not going to be successful. And I was talking to this physician friend of mine and kind of explained to him that, okay, this wasn't going to work out, so I'm going to have to do something else. And he said to me, remember, I'm in medical school. He said, Dr. Woode, notice what he called me, Dr. Woode, you are a physician. And all we've got to do is get you the degree. Now, I tell that story often, and I think back to that often, because it was one of those things that really pushed me. It strengthened my inner coach. It gave me self-confidence. It made me think, right, that maybe there was something there. Notice, I am not going on my own belief in myself, but I'm going based on the belief of this person in my circle, this community member, this person that has my best interest at heart, who's saying to me, yeah, you can do this. All we got to do is get you through the classes. All we got to do is get you through the exams. So the power of community is immense. I can't tell you the times when I may have wanted to not continue, but I thought about what Dr. Callens says. That's his name. And he said, you are a physician, and all we got to do is get you this degree. So community is very important. So how do we build resilience against self-doubt? We also need to get into communities, because the community gives us power It supports us and it pulls us along, and sometimes even carries us as we move through that space. Okay? All right. Well, we can't ever end our conversations without throwing a challenge in there. And so here's our challenge. Make sure you get your journal out. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start looking at this. So journals, right? So today's challenge, you want to write down 3 specific fears about yourself that you have about yourself. Specific fears. I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to complete 100 days. I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to get better blood sugars. I'm afraid that I'm not going to be able to do the things my doctor says I need to do to improve my metabolic health. You want to write 3 fears down. And then next to each fear, you want to write a counter statement that reflects the reality. I'm gonna pause. So we're assuming that what you are thinking, that self-doubt, is not really reality. It's built in that cognitive distortion that we have, that story that we're telling ourselves. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, here's the fear that I have, but I'm going to write down next to it what the reality is. So I can't lose weight. That is not reality. So what's the counter to that? I will lose weight. I am able to lose weight. That's the counter. My blood sugars can't be controlled. It's not reality. The counter to that is I can improve my blood sugars. I can improve my A1C, right? So 3 fears, and you're going to write the counter next to them, right? So if you say I'm not good at public speaking, the counter to that is I can improve, right? Mindset, growth mindset. I can improve my ability to public speak. And I can be successful. Right? So that is what we want you to do. So that's the challenge, right? Get a journal, list 3 places or 3 fears you have. Next to them, write the counter to them, and then pick one of those, and then begin acting in the way that the counter says. Because right now you're acting based on this distorted belief. So what I want you to do is pick one of those things that you put on the sheet of paper or in your journal, and you want you to begin behaving in that way. So if you're saying, well, I can't walk 100 days, well, and the reality, that's the distorted view. The reality is that you can, okay? Or you can exercise, right? So let me throw that in there. I can exercise. I can do 100 days worth of exercise. The question then becomes, right, if I can do it, and I'm not currently doing it, if there are obstacles, how do I get through the obstacles? Come on now. How do I get through the obstacles so that the reality that I know is there comes to fruition? Okay? Remember, the challenges are just theory if they're on the paper, if they're in your journal, if they're on this video. They come to life when you take action. So for each of the things that we're doing, you want to make sure that you're taking action. You want to be doing the challenges, going through the workbook, and making sure that you are solidifying those concepts. If you have to watch a video another time, you want to get with other people and watch the video. We'll let you know later on. These videos are going to show up in another format. We'll let you know where those are and how you get access to those. But this is so important that you are doing that, because at the end of the day, each of the keystone things that we're doing, these keystone habits, behaviors, these concepts that we're working on, this is a blueprint. This is a roadmap for success. And you're going to have 100 such concepts as we get to the end. Okay? So as we wrap up today's conversation, remember that the path to self-confidence and combating self-doubt is a journey of consistency. That's why consistency is such a superpower that I talk about. Each day, as you build a new part, new concept, new feature in your structure, in yourself, in your ideas, in your mind, you are building a confident, more resilient, a stronger version of yourself. And so self-doubt goes by the wayside. Now, let me say this, that self-doubt is something that we continually have to guard against. That's why strengthening that inner coach is so, so important. I'm so glad that you're here. Glad that you have joined me for this episode. We're continuing to build a better version. Each day we're adding new features. We're adding new pieces to the puzzle so that we can build that consistent person. Glad that you're here today for my 100-day walk to consistency. Join me tomorrow as we continue to delve deeper into being successful by developing our consistency. I'll see you on the road.